Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 28th, 2023 Select Board meeting. May I have a roll call, please, Ms. Wertz? You are muted.
Caught me before I even tried.
Okay.
In attendance is Chairman Ms. Whiteside, Mr. Slavin, Mr. Chadwick, Mr. Bessie, and myself as select people. And we also have in attendance Mr. Sullivan, our administrator, and Mr. Bowen, our town lawyer.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick, I know you've had a busy afternoon. Would you say the pledge, please?
Of course. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Apologies for the stutter there for a minute.
Thank you. Announcements, Mr. Slavin.
Okay, first, the Mary V. Rose Scholarship Committee is offering two $500 scholarships to local students who have been accepted into or are currently enrolled in an accredited post-secondary school. Applications are available at the high school guidance office and must be submitted by May 5th. The Mary V. Rose Scholarship is awarded in memory of its namesake, known as Onset's Mother Teresa, due to her love of her community and compassionate assistance to those in need. Rose died in May 2020 at the age of 105 years old. At the time of her death, she was Wareham's oldest resident. Donations to the Mary V. Rose Scholarship Fund can be sent to the Oak Grove Cape Verdean Cultural Center Incorporated, P.O. Box 1100, Onset 02558. Also, anyone who would like to contribute to the Onset Cape Verdean Cultural Center can send donations to the same address. Next, I'd like to thank our Natural Resources Director, Gary Buckminster, for his work on the minor forest and the trails and signage. It's a great help, and I'm hoping to see more people use these trails. They're quite interesting. I also, Wareham Community Associates, which I'm involved with, we give out two $1,000 scholarships and four $500 scholarships every year, which we did this past year. Today's in the news constantly. It's really getting not depressing, but really scary. There was a shootings today in Tennessee at a Christian school where a woman came in, I think she's 27 years old, with 7 guns and basically killed 3 students of 9 years old, a substitute teacher, the school principal, and the custodian. There's just no reason for this. It's just not acceptable anymore. It makes all of us very concerned when we step outside. And that's it for me for today.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick.
I'm just going to add on to what Mr. Slavin said real quick. And, you know, it's a shame that it happened, and it's sad. And I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to blame the mental health system in this country and all around. I've seen personally how it works. I've seen how it works with family members, and I've seen how it works in the back of the ambulance. It's disgusting. This country needs to do a hell of a lot better with it. Yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you, Mr. Chadwick. Mr. Bessie.
Thank you.
Couple of things. You know, to piggyback, I don't want to piggyback off of Alan and Jared, but the last couple of days have been another, you know, rocking in this country with a school shooting. And there's really not words that can describe or, you know, really talk about, you know, the myriad of issues that we have in this country. You know, mental health, you know, is real. It's out there. As Jared said, we don't do enough in this country to help those that have mental health problems. and it's only gotten worse since COVID has come. We've seen it locally, nationally. We just pray for the families of those that are affected. There's, like I said, there's really not words that can describe what we're dealing with here in this country, but just prayers for those families that were affected. I hope that we can as a country get this under control. Back to some local. I want to take a minute to congratulate the Wareham Vikings boys basketball team who won the state championship just recently. Wonderful accomplishment. Those boys, from day one, hit the ground running and hit the floor hard, and played a heck of a season. Fantastic coaching, having the wherewithal to be able to run through a tournament, and really control, who they played and played their style. And we're excited. I'm excited to see them next season, as I believe most of them are coming back. So it's going to be exciting to see how they come back and defend. This Thursday, we are having a showcase Wareham with all of the most of the local businesses have been sent an invite. We've had some great response. I'm excited to see who comes out to see exactly what Wareham has to offer, and to talk about some of the up and coming things that we're looking to do in the village. And I'm excited just to see who comes out, and I'm excited to meet with a lot of the small business owners, and just really see exactly what Wareham has to offer. So if you are out and about and available from 9 to 3 on Thursday in the town hall auditorium, you'll be able to see a lot of great local businesses that have a lot to offer. My philosophy is, shop small, shop local, and this is going to be your chance to really see some of these businesses, and find out who is exactly in town that might not have been able to make it based on their schedules. But I'm excited to see everybody this Thursday. Come on out, have some fun, meet some local entrepreneurs, and see what they're doing in this community, and help this community grow.
Music. Mention the music.
Oh yeah, we do have three great acts coming in, highlighted by a really good local in Grace Morrison. She's going to be here. She's got a lot of exciting new music. She's got a new record that she's working on. So she's going to be here. I'm excited to see her and hear some of the stuff that she's looking to put out on track, and just come out, have some fun, and listen to some great music.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz?
Okay, I do have one in particular I want to congratulate, and I'm bouncing around here because I suspect the paper on her is filed with one of our articles that we have to look at tonight, but I don't want to miss this. And that's Denise Schultz, who is a member of our Conservation Committee and contributes to a number of different committees, officially, unofficially, has been through a set of advanced classes on conservation, and has been rewarded a certificate that says she's accomplished something really good in the state. I will make sure that exact document gets posted so everyone can see it, because Denise, you do a lot, and congratulations.
Thank you. I have a couple. I actually have more than a couple. On Sunday, Mr. Slavin, Ms. Wertz, and myself went to the Vietnam breakfast in honor of Richard Aruba, Ronald Bumpus, James Crowley, and Carlos Rose, the 4 young men who died in Vietnam who were natives of Wareham. It was held at the VFW, and it was a very moving ceremony. We had 2 guest speakers. One of them was a veteran of Afghanistan, Captain Staff Sergeant Albert Price. And then one of them was a 6.5-year prisoner of war in Vietnam, Captain Frederick Purrington. Both of those individuals spoke well, and tomorrow is the anniversary of the the anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, March 29th. And that war, for those of you who were too young to remember, lasted 19 years, 5 months, 4 weeks, and 1 day. And it claimed 58,220 men and women. You may remember that we had one of the moving wall installations here for that in a celebration in the Anderson Field a few years ago. And if you really want to be moved, go see the original installation in Washington, D.C. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for all of those who died in Vietnam. Thank you. I did a tour of the Westport Police Station with Chief Correa and the chair of the Police Study Committee, Ms. Claire Smith. I've put a copy of the presentation that the town of Westport gave to the populace there several years ago, in 2016, when they were trying to build a new police station. Previously in our agendas, you've seen something about alternative energy, and you've heard a presentation from Sherry Quirk. After several discussions with Ms. Quirk, Mr. Schultz, and Mike King, chair of the planning board, we've all decided that instead of creating another committee, that the individuals who are very interested in alternative energy and have already done an enormous amount of work will be working on that and reporting back to the planning board. Let's see, showcase. Want to congratulate the Swifts Beach individuals. That playground is really about to be opened, I guess, soon. The pickets have all been ordered, and I think most of them have been delivered, I think, not sure. But again, that's an indication of people working for the community, and some of them are actually, I'll call them summer residents. Christy Padalano was really the moving force behind the Swifts Beach playground, and she is a summer resident. And I just want to say thank you to all of the people who do, in fact, volunteer for the town of Wareham. So thank you. Now, before we go on to appointments and reappointments and interviews, I'm going to read a statement. I am, as you know, seeking re-election to the select board. Mr. Manise, who is seeking an appointment as a COA associate member, is running against me at the same time, that he is also asking for my vote on this appointment. I believe that the senior citizens of Wareham should be spared this forced political conflict. So therefore, I will not participate in this vote out of concern for a transparent process. So after we have done the appointment on Ms. Lemoyne, I will remove myself from the meeting and I will ask Mr. Slavin to take over the chair. Thank you. Ms. Wertz, I'll accept a motion on Ms. Lemoyne. Is she here? Elaine, if that's you, Lemoyne, would you raise your hand, please, so we can let you into the meeting? I think that's you. No? Let's come back to that one then. May I have a motion, please, Ms. Wertz, on Jessica Parr? She is moving from a part-time or an associate member on the conservation to full-time.
I make a motion that we appoint Jessica Parr to a Conservation Commission term to expire on June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to appoint Ms. Parr. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin.
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick.
Yes.
Mr. Bessie.
Yes.
Ms. Wertz.
Yes.
And myself, yes. I will now remove myself from the meeting. I will wait for Ms. Lemoyne to come. We'll give her a few minutes. And again, I'm recusing myself for the statement that I just read. Mr. Slavin, would you continue, please?
Thank you. Before we start, Ms. Wertz, do you want to make a statement or do you want to stay?
I'll stay.
Okay. Before we go into this particular council on aging, I'd like to just explain some prior history for myself. When I ran back originally the first time in 2012, I chaired about 3 committees and was on 4 or 5 others at the time. I stepped down from the capital planning committee because at that time we were involved as the chair in particular with some very difficult times in which we had issues with the town administrator at that time and several board members as well, the Board of Selectmen. There's a lot of politics involved. There was a lot of newspaper articles, and I felt it was improper for myself to continue as chair while running for office. So I actually stepped down as chair, stayed on the particular committee, but again, recused myself from having any issues that would become public. Mr. Muniz, who is a former selectman, is asking to be on to the Council on Aging. I think it's at this time, it's best to hold this particular application till after the election, because basically there's a possibility that he would have to he'd have to basically resign if he was to win the election. And I think it's best that we hold off. And at that point, I have no problem putting him up for Council on Aging if it's available. So with that, I need a motion for whether to appoint Mr. Muniz or to hold the, actually, I'll make a motion to hold the election until after.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick,
That was it. Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
I'll abstain.
thank you. And I will vote yes. Again, I apologize if anybody's feelings are hurt on this, but I'm trying to do what's best for the town. You let Mrs. Whiteside know she can come back in?
Thank you very much, Mr. Slavin. Elaine Lemoyne, if you are here, could you please raise your hand? I see an Elaine, but I'm not sure it's the same one. Thank you. Mr. White, would you let Elaine into the meeting, please? Thank you. Ms. Lemoyne has been an active participant in our Council on Aging for a while. I met her at the St. Patrick's Day luncheon. She's a really neat person and very much appreciated by the members of the Council on Aging. Ms. Lemoyne, I can see your name and I can see your face. And can you unmute yourself, please? No, can't hear you. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Okay. Yep, 1 minute. No. Okay. She's having technical difficulties, so I'll accept a motion if you would like to make one, Ms. Wertz.
I make a motion that Elaine Lemoyne be appointed to the Council on Aging for a term to expire on June 30th, 2025.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Motion made and seconded to appoint Ms. Lemoyne to that appointment to June 30th, 2025. Is there any further discussion?
Thank you very much.
Oh, now we hear you.
Have to speak.
Yeah, would you
Yeah.
like to, I'll hold the roll call on the vote if you'd like to address the board, Ms. Lemoyne.
I just want to say thank you for letting me join Counseling on Aging. I look forward to working with all the ladies I have been working with for a while. And I enjoy working with the elderlies, which I classify myself as an elderly now, being over 70 years old, you know. And I just hope that everything will keep on going the way it's doing. I think Sharon Rice is doing an awesome job. Sharon Frank. I mean, I could sit here all night, list all the wonderful ladies and gentlemen that are helping out. And I hope I will be a great contribution to your group.
Great, thank you so much.
You're
I will
welcome.
now go for the roll call vote, unless anyone of you has a question. Mr. Slavin?
There's no question, just like to thank you very much for stepping up. It's not
Thank
easy
you.
to be a volunteer these days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll go for the roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 500. Ms. Lemoyne, I believe you've filled out all of the paperwork. It is available in the Select Board's office. There are several documents that you have to provide to us, and I think you know what they are.
Yes,
And so thank you very much for joining us.
thank you for taking me on.
All right, take care. Good night.
All right, have a good evening.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz, I'll accept a motion on the renewal on the item 6A1, which is a common vic for Cape Cod lobster.
Oh. make a
I
mo,
don't believe anybody's here from there. If you're here for Cape Cod lobster, please raise your hand. I don't think anybody is here. Go ahead, Ms.
I make a motion that we renew the seasonal liquor license, actually the common victular wine and malt beverages license issued to Melissa Clement, DBA Cape Cod Lobster Rolls, 239 Onset Ave, Onset, under the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Mass General Law for the year of 2023.
second,
Motion made and seconded. Is that a scrivener's error? It should say Wareham, Mass instead of Onset.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yep. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All of the paperwork is in order. Mr. Slavin?
I just want to thank Larry and Melissa. The Cape Cod Lobster Roll establishment has been constantly highly rated over the last couple of years. And again, we ask that our residents please participate and shop at those particular places locally whenever possible.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Here none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
myself, yes. Next is a motion to grant a common vic to Onset Beach and Patio and Grill. Mr. Evangelista is here. Would you let him into the meeting, please? Mr. Evangelista, please raise your hand. Mr. White, would you let Mr. Evangelista into the meeting, please? Ms. Wertz, I'll accept a motion.
I make a motion to renew the common victular wine and malts beverages license issued to Main Street Deli LLC DBA Onset Beach Patio and Grill, 182 Onset Ave.
Is there a second to the motion?
second,
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Evangelista? No?
Yeah, sorry,
Okay, Mr. Bessie, yeah.
I couldn't get my unmuted. So I was just going through the application packet with all of the information from Mr. Evangelista, and I have a couple of questions. I'm a little bit confused, and maybe Mr. Evangelista can answer the questions for me. So the first thing that I'm looking at, and probably one of the most important things, is I'm looking at the floor plans that were submitted, and I'm confused because there's two separate floor plans. There's one that clearly defines everything, and then there's a handwritten one that kind of really muddies the waters for me. So I just want to understand, what floor plan are we actually looking at, and which one would be the floor plan that you're looking to use in this application, Mr. Evangelista?
Okay, for the record, let me just say, Mr. Evangelista, before you, if you choose to respond, I've asked Mr. Evangelista here tonight because there were several questions as he was preparing his application, and I knew that some questions would be asked, and I asked him to be here if he chooses to answer the question. Mr. Evangelista, do you choose to answer the question?
Yes,
Good. Okay, great. Could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Frank Evangelista, owner, president, Main Street Deli LLC, doing business as Onset Beach Patio and Grill.
Thank you.
To answer your question, Ronald, the original floor plan that we had submitted, I'm not sure if that's the one that was from last year under the Papantoniitis property. But we have since been asked to resubmit a new floor plan and was asked to handwrite it and send it in with exactly what I'm assuming you have in front of you now. I can answer any questions to unmuddy it if you'd like, but I did the best I could based on what I was asked to do. So if you want me to further expand on what I handed in, I am happy to do that right now.
Yeah, so just a couple of things that, so in the floor plan that was actually looking, it was done with like a CAD drawing software or what have you. The liquor storage is clearly defined and looks like a back cooler. But in the handwritten one that you have submitted, it looks like you've changed that to make all of your alcohol storage be under the counter. I'm just curious why you would want to take it from, a cooler or a room storage situation and have it just stored underneath your front counter.
So initially, to answer that, the back cooler that's located in the rear of the restaurant, that's an actual point of sale cooler that we were using to have any extra storage because we don't have any extra space. So we put it there as a point of sale if a customer would like to purchase a canned item. That was covered, so that way we would have no, after the last meeting, we covered everything up, so that way we wouldn't have any issues going forward with that. But that is only for that reason. It's a point of sale cooler. Right next to it is where the sealed canned product is kept as well. These things we moved underneath the counter is at the point of sale for the registers, where every customer can come and purchase, whether it be a food item, an alcohol item, or any item, to be quite frank, that we sell here in the restaurant. So I can also better monitor it. And again, due to the actual shortage of space that we have, I had to keep it there. So it's right at my fingertips.
So is that coolers underneath there, or is that just shelving?
That's all shelving. The only cooler that we have is a little further down, I'd say 10 feet. And that's for the keg storage for the beer kegs. We have 4 taps.
Is that what it looks, on the handwritten one, it looks like it says cooler? Is that what you're referring to? Yeah,
Yes.
okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And as far as looks like here in the original plan, it shows 64 seats outside, 24 seats inside. But then it looks like on here, what you've handwritten is that you have 10. Was it? No, that doesn't even say 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 40, 48, 52, 60. Is that 60 seats on the outside? And then I see a 10 to 15
Yes.
people.
So there is, correct. So we have benches. There's one permanent bench that lines the whole width of the patio where you can get 10 to 15 adults. And then
Okay.
we have permanent seating available with umbrellas, and that's where you get your 60 chairs total,
Okay, so it's 60 plus, so it could be up to 75.
maximum, yes.
Okay, and what is the inside that you have? I can't really read. It says
So
4, is it
inside
4,
we
4,
have-
4, 20 something?
We have 5 tables, which the max capacity would be 4 person per table, so that's 20 seats. And then we have 2 individual tables that sit next to them for a maximum of 4 total seats.
And what is your licensed capacity for the establishment?
To be honest with you, I don't have that in front of me. This is our first year applying on our own. We had the operating agreement with Papantoniitis before that.
So I would
Here to
I
the
would-
same, we didn't make any changes to the floor print at all.
So I guess I would recommend reaching out. I think probably building would have that answer for you to find out exactly what you're zoned at so that you stay into compliance with whatever the code is based on what you have or don't have for sprinklers or no sprinklers or what have you. I would just recommend reaching out and finding out that answer to stay in compliance. Other than that, I think you kind of answered. I mean, I'd love to see that, back space where you are now selling out of to be storage, if that could be in the future, in a future iteration of change, I'd feel a lot more comfortable with it there. Obviously based on, prior things and, trying to keep those. And then the last thing that I have, the last question is, how many people do you have that serve liquor in the establishment?
Right now, 2.
And what are you in the, last year obviously was your first summer, but how many people do you anticipate hiring for the summer that could potentially be serving alcohol?
Well, after the what had happened in the last situation with the gentleman trying to help the young lady serve the alcohol, we have since made better steps as far as hiring people who are only currently having tips training and serve safe training. That's the only type of people we're going to be hiring going forward. So that way we can avoid any future situations where people tell me they're going to get them or they get them within a certain amount of time. We're not going to even hire people who don't have those certifications at this point. So I anticipate, I just hired one, so hopefully they stay. It is a little bit of a challenge getting people to stay and commit to the positions that they are hired for. But as long as that one stays, that will be one added to the team, and then I'm looking to hire 2 more.
So as you add them, will you submit the documentation for each one of the hires that shows that they're tip certified? Because we do, just to make sure that you're in compliance.
Yes, they are actually required to have. That's the only reason I'm hiring them. So yes, 100%.
Okay, I think that answers all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evangelista. Mr. Chadwick, sorry. Go ahead.
Mr. Evangelista, just a quick question. How many businesses do you have running out of there right now?
Currently, just the one, Onset Beach Patio and Grill.
Is this Pizza Heaven or something being run out of there too, that I've seen on Facebook?
So you're referring to the ghost kitchens. Yes, so I actually have 6 ghost kitchens that I use to increase my demographic on DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, any of those third-party sites. So that way we can try and increase the marketing potential for the business. Yes.
Okay, all right. I was just curious because I saw it the other night on Facebook. So
yeah, 6 total, including Onset Beach Patio and Grill.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin?
Just a question which Ron brought up. Do we have a copy of the Common Vic license, which shows the number capacity on that?
Who are you asking?
I'm asking internally for us. Do we? I didn't see it in the paperwork here.
Right. Our new licenses are going to show from now on, because we discovered that we should be putting on the licenses the capacity.
Okay, because I think the trigger is 99. When you go over that, of course, it has to be sprinkled. But in this case, where there's a substantial number outside, I don't think I think that takes away from sprinkling. But I want to make sure also that the gate that's in the open area has to be closed at all times. It has to stay locked where there's a safety open, but it can't be left, that people can walk in and out on the outside.
Okay, I actually have had a conversation with the fire department, and if the capacity is 99, you're fine. And it doesn't matter whether they're inside or outside. If it's 100 or more, you must be sprinkled.
Yeah.
That's from the fire department. So to
It's
answer the question, and that's why we will be putting it on our licenses going forward.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Evangelista, thank you very much. I apologize for having you submit some of the stuff. And I thank you for making sure that the new hires are tip certified. And I guess
No
we're all
problem.
set.
Thank
So
you. I appreciate it.
thank you. I will accept a motion. Or did I get a motion? No, I didn't get a motion yet. Go ahead. Yeah, maybe I did have a motion. I don't even remember.
Yes, I did give you
Yeah,
one.
okay. So is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote then. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
Myself, yes, 500. Mr. Evangelista, the license will be available in the select board office. I'm guessing no later than Monday, but you could call. All
Okay,
right,
thank you very
thank
much.
you very
I
much.
appreciate it.
And is the owner of DJP here, Mr. Patel, is that you? Please raise your hand. Mr. White, would you let Mr. Patel in, please? This is an application for a change of manager. And we will let Mr. Patel address us, please.
Hi,
Hi,
My name
would
is
you
Deepan
identify
Kumar
yourself for
Patel.
the record, please, Mr. Patel?
hi. My name is Deepan Kumar Patel. I'm the owner of the East Wareham Liquor. I'm with the Sejal M. Patel. She's going to be the manager.
Thank you. Do you care to address the board? Other than just to introduce yourself?
She's been working liquor industry last 4 or 5 years. She's currently employees at the East Wareham Liquor.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Patel?
No.
The paperwork is in order for the transfer or for the change of manager. Is there any other questions? Then I will accept a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the application from DJP Liquor Corp., DBA East Wareham Liquors, 2899 to 3015 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, for a change of manager.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 500. Mr. Patel, paperwork will be available, I'm guessing on Monday, if not before, but would you call the office, please?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Item 7A is off the agenda, and now Ms. Quirk, would you raise your hand, please? The next item that we're going to be discussing is the Tremont Dam and the FERC license. I've asked Sherry Quirk to speak to us as she has professional experience with FERC licenses. Mr. White, if you would let Ms. Quirk in. And so what I've asked her to do is give us a quick primer on what a FERC license is, what is its value, what is its future. We have had this license since the early 1980s. And so Ms. Quirk, thank you for joining us. And when you are live, would you identify yourself for the record, please? Can neither see nor hear you. Can neither see nor hear you.
How about now?
Now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, great.
Could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Sherry Quirk, and I'm here to talk about FERC.
Thank you.
So, good evening, and I'm going to talk about the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, as we call it, and what it has to do with the town of Wareham. Full disclosure, my first job after law school was working for FERC. And from time to time, my legal practice has included cases involving hydroelectric licenses, which is the subject that connects Wareham and FERC together. Wareham owns a hydroelectric license and associated dam, the Tremont Dam, having successfully obtained it in 1981, a little while ago. It's licensed as a small hydroelectric facility. FERC regulates hydro projects, and thus it regulates the Tremont Dam. And what this means is that FERC has regulatory requirements which the dam must meet. The most fundamental of which is that it must operate so as to produce electricity and meet certain other safety and environmental requirements. If it were larger, it would have other requirements to meet, but those are the basics. Now, Tremont Dam hasn't operated in a number of years. I think since about 1999. And it has come to FERC's attention. And in recent correspondence, FERC has pointed this out and asked Wareham for a plan about what it's going to do, how it's going to return to commercial operation. Now, recently, a few months ago, Mr. Buckland submitted a reply to FERC, which lays out a plan for meeting FERC's requirements. The plan begins with seeking money through town meeting, or I would presume otherwise as well, to hire engineers to survey the dam in preparation for returning it to operation. And as I understand, this is in conjunction with a potential business opportunity for the town. The funds needed for this survey will assist the town in coming into compliance with its regulatory obligations. As the license owner, Wareham's responsibility is to take these steps to determine whether and how the dam can be returned to power generation, or to consider surrendering the license. To do otherwise is to risk FERC coming in and forfeiting the license, requiring the town to pay for any necessary costs for environmental or safety enhancements, or to take other enforcement action. This is one of those situations where once you're in until you get permission to go out. And at this point, it would appear as if investing some money in this project might be an advisable course to take. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Can you speak to surrendering the license? Do you just call them up and say, take my license away?
Would that it were that simple. I mean, what you would do is to say, we want to surrender the license. They have been doing regular surveys or reviews of the dam for safety considerations. They would take a look at the dam and put together a list of those things that the town would need to take care of in the form of safety and environmental mitigation, ask the town to do that, and after they were completed, would then permit surrender of the license.
And those are the same assessments that we have to do every year or every 5 years, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. They would want to make sure that the dam is not in any unsafe condition.
Okay, thank you. Do any of my members have any questions? Please raise your hand. Ms. Wertz?
I have a couple of them. Sherry, thank you. Thank God for your knowledge and experience. I don't know what I'd do without it. So I have some real basic questions. This particular dam and the energy that it can generate, are we structured so that then can be fed to be accessed by the town in general and used, for example, as backup should major utilities have a fail or breakdown for a while? What can be done with the energy that this generates?
Ms. Quirk, if you know the answer.
I will make an attempt and be happy to be corrected by anybody with superior knowledge of this particular facility. I am assuming that this is or would be connected with the grid, so that it would be another power source for the grid. If I understand the economic development project that's under consideration, power from the dam, if that goes forward, would be used to in conjunction with this particular project, which would be to produce hydrogen. So in that sense, it would be used on site for a particular industrial process.
Ms. Wertz, and then Mr. Slavin.
Yeah, I'm just overwhelmed by this because we haven't been educated on it at all. So the production of hydrogen, how dangerous is that? Is it successful? Is it a business area we're definitely going into? Do we know what the ratio of cost to keep this dam running versus what we will be able to make from it is. I'm willing to bet you haven't been given any of that information.
I think the object of the study that is to be undertaken is to get certainly at the question of whether it makes sense, what the cost will be of doing the repairs, and whether it makes sense in light of whatever opportunities that the town may have with respect to this power, whether it makes sense to go forward. And on the subject of hydrogen production, I just don't know much about that process. But again, I would hope that would be part of any study that was made of going forward with this particular opportunity.
Thank you. Any others, Ms. Wertz?
No,
Okay,
no,
Mr.
thank you
Slavin?
very much.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Slavin?
This particular dam facility, I believe, Derek, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've had at least 2, maybe 3 independent people come in and want to basically lease the property, take the generators out and put new high efficiency generators into the dam, generate electricity, which would go into the grid, not to Wareham, because they'd be leasing the property. The hydrogen piece is a whole new development that I haven't seen or heard any information about, so I don't have anything there. But we have to remember also that this dam is on the state's top % list to be removed as well. The one piece that on the top of that dam, there's a historical building there done by some Italian craftsman way back, which has some historical significance. Just so most people don't know about that either. So in the particular pieces, so far, nobody's been able to come in and actually go ahead and sign off and do a project there. So this is not an easy thing to do, no matter what piece it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any? Mr. Bessie, go ahead.
So when I look at this, and I obviously, we've got something else on the agenda to talk about that could have to do with some things going on. But I think that, no pun intended, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing.
Nice words.
Because either we continue and move forward with it and have to spend some money to on that side of it, or if we were to decommission it per se, I think that there's a financial implication on that side too. So I think either way we decide to go with this as a town, it's going to cost us something. So it's weighing the cost of moving forward and keeping it, as opposed to potentially losing it. And but once we lose it, we know that the odds of us ever getting it back is probably slim to none. So there's a lot to chew and digest and swallow on both sides of the fence. But it's definitely not something that's going to be easy to decide on what we're going to do. But getting a little bit of the knowledge of the FERG license and what it actually stands for and what it does, I appreciate Sherry coming and giving us a little bit of knowledge, because this is something that has to be looked at here relatively soon. So I appreciate you coming in with your knowledge that you had, and kind of just giving us a quick high overview of what it is and kind of what we stand to either keep or lose. So thank you for that.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. The only thing I would add is, of all the things to do, doing nothing is probably, I would urge you not to have that on your list, because that will risk a FERC enforcement action, and nobody wants that.
Excellent. I can add a little bit of information. There is no request on the town meeting warrant, either the special or the annual. And in fact, the WRA discussed providing the approximately $20,000 that would be needed to do the safety update and the hydrology update, which would be required this year. The town has in fact been maintaining, by mowing the lawn and pulling the weeds out, that kind of stuff. But we do have a policy decision that this board really needs to make, because it is a policy decision. And as Ms. Quirk rightly points out, doing nothing is the worst thing to do. And so my suggestion would be that next week on the agenda, we have a vote so that give you some time to do some further homework on this if you wish. But that this board would then recommend back to the WRA to provide from the WRA funds, if it's appropriate, to do those 2 studies that are required in either step that we would be taking, whether it's a decertification or whether it's a continuation. So that would be my recommendation. Mr. Sullivan, please. You're muted, sir. You're still muted. No, you're still muted.
He forgot how to use his computer.
There he is.
I'd say first I want to thank Ms. Quirk for the information. I think it's a little bit unfair of this board to ask her questions about beyond just the FERC background of this. It's Ms. Quirk has not been involved in that. She answered brilliantly, actually. So well done. But it's she hasn't been in the meetings or anything like that. This sort of popped on the agenda because I was a little blindsided as well at the WRA meeting. So going back, this is a long-term issue that's been going on, more especially when we started having some issues with the gates on that dam. And we approached the cranberry growers and we were promised a lot, and we received not even cranberries, we received air. So there was no assistance, and they're the ones that need the water at the bottom. And no, Mr. Cosgrove, it is not your favorite cranberry grower, if you're listening. So that starts at the background, and then we started coming up, trying to figure out ideas with Mr. Menard, Mr. Buckland, on how to fix that without the really that if you will, the dam gates there, without really hurting the taxpayers, and start coming up with the process of seeing if we can get a developer in there. As far as hydrogen goes, that was mentioned for the first time at a meeting within the last 4 weeks, I believe, by a potential developer. So a couple of years ago, what we did was we went out to bid for some folks to come up with ideas of trying to make that site work. It will not generate enough electricity to pay for itself or the repairs or anything like that. It's you're generating much less than a megawatt. So just so everybody understands, this isn't a boon to us. But it's like as Quirk said, there's an alternative there's a penalty for doing nothing, which is why Mr. Menard has been working hard on that site for sort of a long time. And again, just trying to figure out what this board wants to do and move forward, and happy to assist in any way. But this has been brought before the board before. You have a bunch of newbies on here, but it's been brought before several years ago. So some of you have some inclination. So this has been a great review of history and primer on FERC licensing.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I asked Ms. Quirk to educate the board. I didn't say she was going to have to answer questions, and
that's I think it started going down that path, which is unfair for Ms. Quirk.
Yeah, it is unfair. Because what I really wanted was to have people have the history to understand what a FERC license is and the importance of doing it right, whether you choose to give it up or whether you choose to protect it. So again, I'm going to Thank you very much, Ms. Quirk, and I'm going to ask that we put this on next week's agenda to give the new individuals time to research it more. Again, I am looking for a vote next week so that we can give guidance to the WRA, which does have the funds to pay for approximately $20,000 for those 2 studies that would be required. So thank you, Ms. Quirk. Really appreciate you
welcome.
being here this evening.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is a possible vote regarding a $25,000 state grant, which would be used for the marketing of the town of Wareham. Again, this is something Mr. Buckland let us know about last week. Mr. Sullivan, are you prepared to speak on this or not?
No, it's,
Yeah, neither am I.
I don't know why it came before the WRA and then suddenly it's on the.
Yeah,
Selectmen's agenda.
I'm gonna hold this one off too. Ms. Wertz, I'll accept the motion for the $2,500 donation, please.
I make a motion to accept the funds to the COA in the amount of $2,500 for partial funding of a temporary part-time volunteer coordinator.
You will note that this is an anonymous donation and we gratefully will accept it. Is there a second to the motion?
Second, sorry.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to accept Mr. Bessie?
Just a question for, I guess, a point of clarification for me as I'm still learning some of. So somebody's made a donation anonymously now, and they're saying for a specific, they're looking for it to go to a specific thing. Are they able to earmark to make sure that those funds actually go to what they have been donated for?
Yes.
I know it's on paper, but
Yes, when we accept them with a specific line item like that, yes, that is where they go.
Okay.
That is where the funds go.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, I know people can ask for it. I just wanted to make sure it was something that could actually be done.
No, it actually is done.
Okay.
Clarification, if the town chooses to spend the funds, it can only be utilized for them. So in other words, somebody could donate 50,000 and say it's towards hiring 5 new officers. You don't have to hire 5 new officers. But if you hired 5 new, you could use those funds. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
No, that makes sense. Like I said, I just wanted to have clarification in my mind so that I know exactly how it works when things like that come in.
Excellent. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion to accept? Seeing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, yes, 500. Okay, next on the agenda is discussion and possible vote to include articles in the 2023 special town meeting warrant. You did receive today the updated suggested articles as well as a new grid. There are 14, 15, 16 articles that we would be recommending go on this agenda, on this warrant. So I will, Ms. Wertz, I'd ask you to read the line item, for instance, S1 budget transfers, because what we have to do now is vote to put them on the warrant.
Do we want to take them one at a time? Originally, we talked about a general motion to
And we'll
include
do
our,
it one at a time.
okay. I make a motion that we move to recommend favorable action on Article S1 budget transfers for the special town meeting warrant.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to include the item on the warrant. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, it is on the warrant. Next one, please.
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S2 Fund Parking Program for the special town meeting warrant.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion to include that article? Hearing none, I'll go for a roll call vote, please. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Ms. Wertz,
I can do Mr. too. Yes,
Wertz?
please.
And myself, yes, 500, it's on the warrant. Next one, please.
Make a motion to recommend favorable action on Article S3, Spring 2023 Capital for the special town meeting warrant.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Motion made and seconded
The
to,
motion should be to put it on the warrant.
it is to put it on the warrant. It is correct, Ms. Slavin. Is there a second to the motion? Yes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Ms. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, it's on the warrant. Next,
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S4
No.
transfer.
No.
no, move to include S4.
I move to include
S4, the transfer of available funds in the warrant.
S4 for the transfer of available funds to the special town meeting warrant.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, on the warrant. Next, please.
I move to include Articles I move to include Article S5 FY 24 revolving funds to be included on this, the 2023 special Springtown meeting
Second to that motion.
warrant.
Yeah, and just so the board knows, these have already been approved, and this is just to set the spending limit. Once revolving funds are approved, the first time they're put into the, they actually become bylaws. So every year you just need to set the ceiling on them, but we include all the information on there as well.
Right. Any is there a
Second.
second motion made and seconded. Any further discussion to include? Hearing none, Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, it's on the warrant. Next, please.
I move that we include Article S6, PEG access receipts to Wareham Community TV to have it included in the 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
There's a second to that motion.
second,
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. It's on the warrant. Next,
I move to include Article S7 union contracts in this 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
Second.
motion made and seconded to include. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Chadwick,
Abstain.
thank you, and Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes. 401. Thank you. It's on the warrant. Next, please.
I move to include Article S8 opioid stabilization fund in the 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
second,
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, it's on the warrant. Next, please.
Madam Chair, do you want me to just give a quick primer on that one? I know that some of you.
Well, because we're gonna actually go try and get favorable recommendations on
Okay.
these.
Yeah, if there's any questions on some, if you don't feel it should be on the warrant, no problem asking if it's something that I've
Yeah,
got.
okay. Next, please, Ms. Wertz.
I move to include Article S9 earth removal engineering study in the 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
second,
Motion made and seconded to include that article. Any further discussion? Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Ms. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes. Next, please. It is
I
on.
move, I move to include Article S10 Bayview Park in the 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
Second.
second,
Made and seconded. Remember, this is the fairly large ask from the CPC funds to renovate and refurbish that park. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
No,
And myself, yes. 410, it is on the warrant. Ms. Wertz, next, please.
I move to include Article S11 Wareham Littleton Drive in the 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to include. Any further discussion? Mr. Slavin, this is again CPC money. Mr. Slavin,
Yes, yes,
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
and Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, yes, 500, it is on the warrant. Next, please.
I move to include Article S13. I'm not sure if how the Article S12 Harbor Services Permit Receipts Reserved for Appropriations Account in the 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
second,
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion to include? It's a regular article every year. Hearing none, I'll go for a roll call. Mr. Slavin,
yes,
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes, it is on the warrant. And next article S13, please.
I move to include Article S13, Article 6 of zoning bylaws, density and dimensional regulations in the 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
second,
Motion made and seconded to include that on the warrant. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
yes,
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes, 500. It's on the warrant. Next is S14, please.
I move to include Article S14, change of funding source for the 2022 Fall Town Meeting Water Pollution Control Facility in the 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
Is there a second?
second,
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
yes,
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes, it's on the warrant. Next, S15, please.
I move to include Article S15 Wareham Village Reinvestment Subdistrict WV-1R in the 2023 special Springtown meeting warrant.
second,
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion to include? Mr. Slavin,
yes,
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes, 500. Article S16 is on by right. It is a properly petitioned citizens petition. So there are 16 articles on this warrant. May I have a motion to close the warrant, please?
I
so
move
made,
to,
Motion made to
second,
close the warrant. Okay, any further discussion on closing the warrant? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
yes,
Mr. Bessie,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
yes.
myself, yes. Okay, now what I'd like to do is to actually vote to ask you to see if there's any of these that you would recommend favorable action on. And these would be the ones that Mr. Sullivan could explain, or I could explain a couple of them too. The first one is budget transfers. It's a totally regular article. It appears every year. Any questions on that one? I have a motion for favorable action then.
Madam Chair,
So would
why
be
don't we,
recommending, what, oh, sorry, Mr. Slavin.
yeah, I would hold off on favorable action just until we have you'd want the actual transfers. You're
Okay.
right, it is just a normal one, but I think you want to see the actual transfers on.
Okay. Then S2, we actually have an amount of $79,070 on S2. That was the figure that Mr. Sullivan provided to us today, and it is included in the article as we had it finalized today. Could I have a motion for favorable action on that?
I
And
move
I
to,
can give you a quick.
Yeah, quickie, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying to.
Yep.
And the 300 emails that I
I know. It's-
have from.
I have to say that I should have said it earlier. Ms. Slaney, Cassandra Slaney, was extremely helpful, as she always is, in making sure that this warrant was correct in terms of all of the numbers and all of the dates and all of the. We had to move a couple of things around in order to make the spacing look professional, and as usual, she she was able to put together a very professional looking document. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, I was just opening up the document right now. Okay. So we anticipate we have the parking kiosks, so the service fee of the kiosks run approximately $5,800 for the season. Then we have supplies for the kiosks on the paper receipts, etc. 3,200. The main parking enforcement officer, we estimate for the season, 16,120. Parking officer for another one for approximately 16 weeks. Two of those folks for about 18,000, and then usually we have about a part-time person runs about 4320. Uniforms, officer equipment, annual about 2,500, and then the fuel service for the parking vehicle runs about $3,850. So that's $54,070. You'll see obviously the amount you have in front of you is higher by 25,000, and that's for just onset projects. Those are because that's the parking funds, they can only be spent in and on onset related projects. So we usually try and pull those out for something to do something nice for the onset community that's part of the parking program.
Great, thank you. We have a motion and a second for favorable recommendation to the town meeting. Any further discussion? I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, favorable action it is, 500. Next, we'll skip, do you want to do the capital, Mr. Sullivan, or not?
Let's pass over that
Okay.
and we'll go to the transfer of available funds.
Okay, can you explain that one, please? S4, which is a transfer of available funds.
You'll see this A, so the total amount's 1.15 million. A is to the stabilization fund. You'll see that's higher than the 125,000 that we talk about. The reason being, if you remember at the fall town meeting, we did not have free cash certified. So we used $200,000 from the stabilization fund to pay for the streetlight upgrade, which is starting next month. Approximately 1,000 new streetlights coming to the community. So, well, upgrading the streetlights to LED. They're upgrading existing ones. So that's why you'll see 325,000. The OPEB trust fund amount for 300,000 is part of the policy we've established. Collective bargaining reserve, we try and keep a reserve for, especially when we settle contracts, if they're off year, off cycle, if a previous fiscal year is already closed and there's some costs, and that just keeps us sort of a sound fiscal management. Benefits reserve, we're continuing that on. That's for when you get employees that retire or leave that are long time that have buyouts for whether it's their vacation or sick. And we've had a few hit that from the last time we've done it. So I'd like to replenish with the $100,000. Emergency management, that's for when we have storms, when we have anything else, including when we experience the extreme cold, when we paid for the hotel rooms for those that were at risk. Those are the types of funds you use for that. If we open up the warming center, you're not worrying about overtime or anything like that with staffing. So I'd like to have those funds on hand. Code enforcement, that's for things around town. There's going to be some places that we eventually will have to demolish, plus we have to clean up, and it's unfair to keep on hitting the municipal maintenance budget for that, which means we get less service to the rest of the residents of the community if we're using their expenses. Grant funding, this one's kind of interesting. Selectman Slavin and Selectman Whiteside and Selectman Wertz have select board members. So I'm going old school on this now.
All right, we all do.
Select board members approached me about their concern about the we have a gap from the what's funding, especially with GATRA, between when the next the next grant cycle's coming on board. If you remember, we're basically getting 2 years worth of the grant, but that's because they've started so late from the federal level. So right now, I know the 30,000 you voted, which to put aside for transportation, which was well received, is going to be beneficial for the COA and some other folks that need it, especially for medical transports. That funding won't be there in time. We won't get it before the funding that GATRA already has runs out. Now, the grants, the CDBG grants, you cannot pre-expend funds before the grant is fully awarded and the funds received. So it leaves a gap. My recommendation, because there's a couple different things, even with the housing project that's already begun and some others, my recommendation is the sort of unique situation that we take $100,000. We'd set some aside for matching funds for grants, but I think this is what I'd rather set aside and use it for this as a proper explanation for the decision makers. Does that make sense? Well,
Yes.
we've
Yes.
got the funds, I
Yeah.
think we're just trying to
Fine.
bridge the gap, if you
Yep.
will.
Excellent.
That's good.
And then Conservation Commission is looking for a bylaw rewrite. We could take funds out of the Wetlands Protection Fund, but you cannot use it for an attorney. There's an IGR going back to 1998 about it. You had to research on some of the uses, and it was pretty adamant about not using an attorney. Be able to use those funds to the attorney to rewrite your bylaws. You could. So I'm just looking at it, and rather than potentially getting in trouble, we have the funding available. I think it's proper use for one time for something that's probably pretty badly needed to be redone.
Excellent. And those funds, as he's explained, total $1,150,000.
And it's all from FY23 certified free cash.
Excellent. May I have a motion?
I
Motion.
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S4, transfer of available funds for the special town meeting warrant.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes.
and Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 500. The revolving accounts, Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, this is more of a pro forma. These have already been approved by town meeting. And this is really to do the spending limit. If you see the FY24, the current spending limit would be 1 million for Little Harbor. That's what we set before, and 750,000 for the Deacon's facility. And I recommend we continue with the same, keep those out there.
Thanks, May I have
And
a
in the
motion?
future, we can just add them to the normal grid.
Right, it should have,
Yeah.
that was, I'll take the blame for that one. It was a clerical error. We did not get it onto the annual warrant along with the other grid items, so we put it in here, and next year it'll show up in the right place. May I have a motion, please?
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S5 FY24 revolving funds.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes. 500. PEG access, Mr.
Yeah, if we don't receive an additional distribution from Verizon or Comcast, the amount would be $247,645.71. And so just going back a few years, the Municipal Modernization Act, we used to be able to just transfer this out to the Wareham Community TV for their operations. This revenue is generated. If you look at your Comcast or Verizon bill, you'll see PEG access. That's actually the fee. It comes to to the towns to be able to give, governmental educational access or public TV, if you will. So we receive these funds and then we contract out with a third party, which is WCTV, to provide those services. You have two options. You can either do an enterprise fund, or the town can contract a third party. For a purely financial perspective, I think the third party makes more sense. We don't have any pension obligations or anything like that. We're not hiring extra employees. So, and they do a nice job. So we appreciate it.
Thank you. Any
I
further?
always wondered what that charge was on my bill. Now I know. Thank
Now
you.
know. Okay. May
I
Me-
moved,
you
I
did
moved,
it. Go ahead.
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S6, PEG access receipts to Wareham Community TV for the 2023 special town meeting warrant.
There's
Second.
motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 500. Union contracts, do you want to do those, Mr. Sullivan, or not?
No, I'd request that we set up a executive session for A, B, and E.
A, B,
C
and E?
is- Yeah,
Okay.
see, I have two more sessions before town meeting. I'm hoping that we can, that we're close enough on the next session, we can bring you something. Excuse me, D, I believe, will not be done in time for town meeting. So-
Okay. I won't be able to do it next week. Next week is a hybrid meeting, but I can do it the next week after that.
Okay.
Okay. Article 8, Mr. Sullivan, do you choose to explain that one to us?
Yeah, so just so people understand, when we get a revenue in the same fiscal year, so after July 1, we get a revenue. Select board member Bessie goes into his couch and finds a couple $1 million and decides to give it to the town, or paying, or honestly something, you get something like an opioid settlement. That is a revenue. You cannot just expend it in the same year. So what has happened is the DOR and the Division of Local Services has created a special setup which allowed us to recertify our free cash with the opioid settlement funds that we received this year. We have not spent the money because you can't spend a revenue. It's impossible. It wouldn't get through accounting. It wouldn't get through anything. So it's I'm hoping that's finally going through people's skulls, if you will, on that. But so this allows us, we've reset the free cash. They approved that today for $158,979. Those are the revenues we've received. So we're going to create the stabilization fund. And in that which is allowed by law, and in that stabilization fund, we will put the opioid revenues, and then only town meeting can vote those revenues out for the specific purposes. So, and it's this is a safeguard and make sure, and then this keeps track of everything. So there cannot be a mudslung, if you will, as well. So this is what a few places are doing. I think this is the most effective way to do it and to log it. So I appreciate everyone's help on getting this done. Our local reps did a nice job helping us out.
Excellent. Thank you. May I have a motion, Ms. Wertz?
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S8 opioid stabilization fund for the 2023 special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. S9 is something that I actually wrote up and talked with Mr. Sullivan about. I'm recommending that we hire a consulting engineer to study or review the earth removal in the town of Wareham. It's been a hot topic, as you all know. And I believe that it's time that we took some action. We tried this a couple of years ago and were not able to finish up what we had hoped to do. So I'm putting it back before the voters as something that I think is necessary to get done. So it would be a contract labor to study the earth removal information that we have, or that person might be able to ascertain. Any further discussion? Can I have a motion, please?
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S9 Earth Removal Engineering Study for the 2023 Special Town Meetings warrant.
Second,
Motion made and second. And any further discussion for favorable action? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 500. S10, which is Bayview Park. Many of you have seen the request and the plans. This would be CPC money of $1,080,000 for the rehabilitation and improvements to Bayview Park, which of course is really the jewel in the crown of Onset. If you have any questions, myself or Mr. Sullivan can probably give you that information. We have provided in-kind funding from our municipal maintenance department. This is something that really needs to be done. It will make the park entirely ADA compliant, handicapped accessible. And we've walked this park with several different people. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Other than that, I would accept a motion.
I
So-
move, sorry.
Yes,
sorry.
Just a quick question. Is there, so there's been walk, so I'm assuming that there are plans and breakdowns of what is being done and how much is being expended on each part of the project?
Yes, there has been, I can't remember which consulting firm laid it out, but yes, there are several paths that wind up to the peak of the hill, because it's quite a steep hill.
Mhm.
It includes repairing the sidewalks, it includes making safer access, and it includes making, for instance, the gazebo actually accessible to someone who is mobility challenged.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not an insubstantial amount of money.
Oh.
It does create, I think we've had the plans on there before. We'll put them in the packet for the residents as well. I think that's a good point, select board member Bessie, to have that information out there so they see what they're getting for the money, and just sort of the redirection of the park, making it ADA accessible. And I think it's 10 years ago, if you told me we'd be spending this on a park for what's happening, I would have been shocked. But the cost escalations for the last few years, I mean, it's starting to seem everything's $1 million or higher. So,
Well, yeah, especially when we look at the parks that we've done here in town and, what we've spent on those parks, the number is obviously much larger than putting in multiple parks together. So that's why I think people having a good visibility, understanding of what it's being expended, and obviously we know costs have gone up, but having that available for the residents, I think will be important if this is going to be something that would be approved.
Excellent. Thank you. Good suggestion. May I have a motion for favorable action, please?
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S10 Bayview Park for the 2023 Special Town Meeting warrant.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes. 500. Littleton Drive, S11 is a request for $300,000 to basically bridge the gap on the Littleton Drive project, which is providing 93 units to the town of Wareham. Most of it's senior housing. This is a project that's been in the works for quite a long time. Previously, they had requested $850,000. That was turned down about 4 years ago, I think. This $300,000 will enable them to complete their pledges to have a community available park in, playground in the development. Any further discussion? It's CPC money. Any further discussion? I'll accept a recommendation for favorable action, please.
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S11 Wareham Littleton Drive for the 2023 special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Slavin.
Normally, my always, when it comes to CPC articles for profit-making companies, I usually vote no and have all the way through. This particular project is probably the best, and Mr. Sullivan can chime in if you like as well, the best 40B project the town has ever had. And instead of taking the money and trying to just make more profit out of it, the money they're asking for is really to cover true increase in expenses. So I'm going to abstain because, I just don't vote for these things, but I just want people to know that I do approve the project.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie
Yes.
and Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes. 401. Thank you. It's a $45 million project. Just so that everybody knows. S12, can we do that, Mr.? Yes, we can. Mr. Sullivan, S12 Harbor Services permit.
Yeah, did you receive that? Mr. Buckminster usually sends a full primer right to the board on that.
He did a couple of weeks ago. I didn't include it in here, but do you want us to hold off on it?
Yeah, I mean, if you remember what's on there, I'm drawing the blank on it, so I apologize.
I think it was engines, but
Yeah, there's, if you remember, we'd approved engines beforehand.
yeah, and there was a shortfall, so we had to come up with additional money. I think
Yeah,
that's
there was a cost increase on it from the time that it was ordered to the time it actually was going to land.
Yeah,
I
so
think that was what
just
the-
so everyone knows, this is this isn't, so basically what you get told is, yep, we started the build. Here's our estimated cost. Now with all the inflationary, this is the actual cost for it. Now they've been built out. So you can choose to take them or not. And if you don't take them, let's go back on the 2-year waiting list. So, and how much more expensive will they be? So I think it's appropriate to fund it, and I wish we wouldn't have to, but this is also how the harbor service permits receipts reserved for appropriation account. That's an appropriate use of it.
excellent. Yes, Mr. Slavin.
I went through it all and asked Gary some questions. I would make a motion to accept this particular article. There's nothing wrong with it at all.
I would
To
second it.
recommend favorable action. Is that what your motion is?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
And I
And second,
second that.
motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
myself, yes, 500. The zoning bylaw regulations, these have been, this is on density and dimensional regulations. The planning board has had hearings on this and have recommended it favorably. It is in the packet, and I don't have any issues with it. I've proofread it about 9 million times now. What it does is it cleans up some of what is in the density and dimensional regulations under Article 6 in these zoning bylaws. May I have a favorable motion for favorable recommendation?
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S13 for Article 6 zoning bylaws, density and dimensional regulations for the 2023 special town meeting warrant.
Madam Chair,
Yep.
do we want, I know you've received everyone's received the documents for this and the next one, gone through it. Many of you have attended multiple meetings on these. Do you want a primer? Do you want Mr. Buckland in or somebody from the planning board or anything? Okay.
No, may I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. May I have a roll call? Any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please? Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
and Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. Mr. Buckminster, I asked him a question. There are three things that account for the 18,000: dinghy and kayak racks, boat dockage, and $9,000 for the motor
Yeah.
increase cost of the increase for that. Thank you, Mr. Buckminster. Now the Article S14 is submitted by the sewer commissioners, and what it is asking the town meeting to do is there were three articles that were passed in the fall town meeting. All of them were for $2 million. They were Articles 15, 16, and 17 in the fall town meeting. They were for engineering costs, for the secondary clarifiers upgrades, the headworks, and the Smith Street sewer lines. The way they were voted in the town meeting was for borrowing after the certification of the free cash in the water pollution control facility account. They have over $1 million. So this article asks that the town meeting change the funding to be from that account. I hope that's a succinct.
Yeah, they're over, it's got a little over 11 million.
Yes, didn't I say that?
You said a million. So
Oh, 11 million.
Would have been about
Well,
five
maybe-
shy.
Yeah, no, it's over $11 million. Yeah. Any further discussion? May I have a motion for favorable action, please?
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S14, change of funding source for 2022 Fall Town Meeting Water Pollution Control Facility for the 2023 Special Town Meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Regrettably, yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 500. And the S15, the reinvestment of the subdistrict WV1R, which is the reinvestment. They've had 3 public hearings. The planning board, I believe, has weighed in a positive fashion. The document is several pages long. And again, I'm sure, I know a couple of you are very familiar with it. I know 3 of you are very familiar with the document. Are there any questions, or would you like to recommend favorable action? Ms. Wertz?
I move to recommend favorable action on Article S15 Wareham Village Reinvestment Subdistrict WV-1R for the 2023 Special Town Meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 500. We will ask the petitioner for Article S16 to come before us. I will ask if she can make it next week. And so what I would like to do now is go back to the regular warrant. Mr. Sullivan, the revolving funds, recurring business, the budget's not ready, the EMS budget, the amending the zoning bylaw on parking, and terminate the Swift Speech contract, which is a citizen petition. We've heard from the petitioners, but we wanted a full board to be able to discuss that one. Are there any of those, Mr. Sullivan, you think we could knock off? It would be
Sure.
the revolving funds, not yet.
Yeah, I mean, you can just do, the revolving funds are what they are. Those have already been approved by town meeting, and you're just setting the spending limit on it, so there is no change to them.
Okay, Ms. Wertz, may I have a recommendation for favorable action, please?
I move to recommend favorable action on Article for FY 24 revolving funds to be included in the
Yeah,
2023
it already is included. Yep. May I have a
for,
second?
for the 2023 annual town meeting warrant.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. The recurring business, again, is just normal housekeeping, so I would ask a favorable recommendation on that one, please.
I move to recommend,
What?
somebody else was speaking if they want to do it. Oh, I move to recommend favorable action on Article 2, recurring business for the 2023 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 500. Capital plan, we will postpone. And the budget and the EMS budget. The zoning bylaw, which is Article 17, which is about parking. That again has been heard by the planning board. They would have had a favorable recommendation. Any questions on that one, or do you want to have somebody explain it? No? Okay. May I have a recommendation for favorable, motion for favorable recommendation?
on 17, correct? Or are we going back up?
Yeah,
to
no,
the
I'm
top?
I'm on 17.
Okay. I move to recommend favorable action on Article 17, amend zoning bylaw parking for the 2023 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action. Any further discussion on the motion? Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes. We did not discuss this last week because Mr. Bessie had a prior engagement. This is a citizen's petition, which is asking the town meeting to terminate the contract. What is your pleasure? Mr. Slavin?
I have a question of either Mr. Bowen or Mr. Sullivan.
Yep.
My basic comment is I don't think any of us are happy about how this whole thing of Swiss Beach went down, whatever else. But we have a contract. My question is, if the Board of Selectmen goes ahead and goes on record, to be favorable action for a citizen's petition like this, what's the liability to the town and stuff? Because we have a fiduciary responsibility to the town also. This is one of these lose-lose questions.
Mr. Bowen or Mr. Sullivan, if you choose to answer, if you can answer.
Madam Chairman, I prefer that I answer it.
Thank you.
It's a difficult situation. If the town has entered into a binding contract, if it is a binding contract, then the question is, can town meeting take an action to void or cancel an already entered into contract? And the answer is, well, sure, town meeting can do those things. It could defund the contract. There are some steps that it might be able to take to render the town's performance under the contract impossible. So question one is, are there things the town meeting could do that could impair this contract? The answer is yes. But the real question here, and I think the one Alan's getting at, is what are the consequences of those actions? If this is a binding contract, and if town meeting takes actions to impair that contract, then the remedy for the other contracting party is to sue for breach of contract. And I'm sure that's what they would do. So whether the Board of Selectmen takes a position on that, I think it's a good question. I think that if you're looking to minimize liability, potential exposure, probably the safest course of action you could take would be to take no action or make no recommendation on the article.
Mr. Bowen, I have a question for you. uh, And would it be appropriate for this board to have this in a discussion with you about this in an executive session?
At some point, perhaps, but in broad strokes, what could happen in any situation where you have a binding contract, and I'm not saying that this is, if town meeting takes actions to impair the town's performance under a binding contract, then there are consequences. And those consequences include a lawsuit. They include potential calculation of damages by the injured party. So, sure, people can do what they want, but there are consequences. And I'm just alerting you all to the fact that there may be consequences associated with this. Now, I make my comments completely independent as to whether, there is a binding contract or, whether the contract was a good idea. I'm not getting into any of that.
Right, I understand that, sir. I think my recommendation would be that we put it on the executive session, which we are having on the 11th, because we already have the union contracts. We have some union contract negotiations to discuss. So, yes, Mr. Slavin.
I don't think we need to go that way. I think, as Rich explained, I made my comments before, but I think we should take a motion of no action and let the citizens at town meeting make a decision. I really don't feel that I want to put the town of Wareham in financial jeopardy, because then as selectmen, we're not doing our fiduciary responsibility. This is a very tough decision because we have citizens one side that feel they've been abused, is the best way to put it. And at the same time, we have a contract that was signed and, correctly and everything else for the project. And I think we should stay out of this.
Is that your motion, Mr. Slavin, for no
Yes,
action?
it is.
Is
Yes.
there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to take no action on this article. Is there any further discussion on the article? Hearing none or seeing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Abstain.
and myself, yes, 401. That does it. Okay, I know that Mr. Chadwick was today, unfortunately, a very unfortunate fire where he was on the front line. Thank you, Mr. Chadwick, for being a first responder. And I know that at least two of my other members are have been working on this agenda and this warrant for a long time. So I am going to tell you that there are no information under 48 hours, and I'm going to go to the town administrator's report. Mr. Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm going to keep it brief. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Liaison initiative reports, Mr. Sullivan.
I don't think.
I mean,
can do
Mr. Slavin. Obviously, I'm one of the ones who's tired.
I'm way ahead of everybody. You remember that?
I know.
Okay, let me try and get done before I do pass out. We have a meeting tomorrow with the DOT and the two fire departments on 6 and 28 road construction. It's a pretty thorough agenda. It lists a bunch of different areas with problems, including Landers, which is the contractor. This is the first time we've actually got the contractor in the middle of it as well. I'm hoping some good results. And I am hoping that Eversource does not take 2 years to move the poles. Next up, Community Events Committee had a meeting last night. We've been talking to a company that did the New England Boating Magazine article for us a couple of years back. And they are going to, the gentleman who runs that is going to be doing a TV program on Nesson. Program will be a half hour. It'll cover all different areas of Wareham, the bathhouse projects that we have, the Wewianic River and other areas for kayaking, etc. He'll be talking to Gary Buckminster about the trails we have in the different forests. It's going to be a really nice piece. What will happen is a CEC will pay for it because it falls under their guidelines. And we have full use of the TV disc and everything else. We can use pieces of it. We can put it off advertising for the town as well as what will be on television. I'm looking forward to that particular piece as well. We have, in a couple of days, I'll be at a meeting with, again, Mass DOT, the Wewiana Bridge project, which is at the Marion Wareham line, is about ready to kick off. And we'll be discussing how it's going to work and how it's going to affect everybody. This will have a traffic impact on Route 6 at that area there, because the project is not just the bridge. It goes up a ways into Marion and also goes away. I think it goes down as far as Cremisa as well, possibly. The article that I talked about a week ago, which had to do with the state authorizing an authority to assist the municipal construction, which had to do with public safety buildings, different types of buildings, et cetera. I've been able to get our state rep, Susan Gifford, to sign on to the bill already. Also, there's been, I believe, 6 or 7 other senators and representatives I've signed on. When I had the Serpent Commission meeting this past Wednesday, I have 27 communities in that particular organization that I chair, and I believe all 27 communities are going to sign on to it as well. So we're lobbying as hard as we can for this. It's physically impossible now going forward for us to fix any kind of infrastructure, whether it's a police station repair or replace, council on aging, almost anything you can think of. The costs are just, what I call unobtainium. It's just not possible. We don't have the budget. We don't have any help at the state level right now. It's not coming. So we can't just sit there and do stuff. I'm really tired of us spending money on engineering, whether it's an engineering study or a straight study, and getting stymied at the end. We have the bike path that I had to personally put a hold on because the state came out of nowhere and said, well, you have to pay $500,000 for doing easements and et cetera. We don't have money for stuff like that. Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Buckland got a call this past week from Mass DOT Rail. Everybody knows that we've been talking about a boardwalk on the backside of Merchants Way. I've gone to Boston with Mr. Buckland about getting a railroad crossing to make it legal. They came back, and if I speak out of turn, Derek, please say so. They basically said they would pay for the crossing, but only give us one. But in order to do that, we have to put up $350,000 for fencing. It's just, we can't do these things. It's extremely frustrating to spend hours and hours to try and do something for the town. And basically the Commonwealth of Massachusetts financial bus runs over us and kills us. So I just want people to know that we are trying very hard, but we have things coming and hitting us that we have no idea are coming. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin. Mr. Chadwick?
I think the only thing I have is the good luck to the 8th grade. Jesus, I'm sorry. Good luck to the 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip that leaves on Sunday.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Bessie?
Nothing tonight.
Thanks. Ms. Wertz? Nothing? Okay, myself, nothing. No minutes, no, nothing. Mr. Slavin, I know you're waiting to do this.
I just want to let everybody know that did contact me. I appreciate the concern that everybody, that knows me, knows I had a cardiac surgery on Thursday. I was able to survive through it. And thank you for everybody's concern. With that, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, not debatable. I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin?
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick?
I still smell like smoke from earlier, so you're getting a yes tonight.
Okay, and Mr. Bessie?
Thank
Yes.
you.
Ms. Wertz?
Yes.
Myself, yes, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. I would remind you, next week, we are hybrid. And I will explain that to my members. We are hybrid and we will be doing business in room 320 at the Multi-Service Center. Good night, Wareham. Thank you.
Everybody.
Right.